Wake up, Canadians. Your government hates you and they are selling you out to foreigners every single day. They are welcoming, inviting, paying for, you are paying for the invasion of your country. While Canadians are homeless, cannot afford to feed their families, record 2.2 million Canadians using food banks, cost of living crisis worse than we've ever seen, worst GDP per capita in the G7, all thanks, it wasn't like this 11 years ago before Justin Trudeau was elected, all thanks to these insane liberal policies. Story that perfectly exemplifies how much this government hates us. Over the past 18 months, this program just stopped because it was starting to get some publicity. But over the last year and a half, the government of Canada has taken 14 prime hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. 1,400 prime hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. Obviously, Niagara's main source of income is tourism. 1,400 prime hotel rooms, taken them, paid for them with your tax dollars, and put migrants up in them. That's right, 18 months, 1,400 hotel rooms in Niagara. You listen to the Niagara mayor talking about the disastrous impact that it has had on their economy. Regardless of that, which is disgusting, which is absolutely disgusting. Imagine being a Niagara business and being severely undercut by having migrants stay where there should be tourists. So many reports of tourists being unable to get rooms in Niagara Falls. But why exactly is the Canadian government taking our tax dollars at the same time as Canadians have not struggled like this economically for at least 50 years? And it's a direct result of these communist policies. And without Canadians being aware of it, behind our back, like the sneaky little liars that they are, the government of Canada, 1,400 hotel rooms paid for with your tax dollars for 18 months. Can you imagine? The estimates are that, and this is most certainly a low estimate, the government of Canada lies. It's so hard to get real numbers on this, but $9 billion is the estimate in the last 5 years alone. 9 billion Canadian taxpayer dollars for immigrants. This is a government that hates us. They know there's an economic crisis right now. The numbers don't lie. Mark Carney has been the governor of the Bank of England. This guy is supposed to be an economist. It's undoubted right now that Canada's economy is totally in the shitter because despite the fact that we have natural resources that everybody's begging for, like LNG, potash, and oil, the Canadian government refuses to take advantage because of these so-called green initiatives, this green grift that gets Mark Carney and his buddies at Brookfield Asset Management rich as hell. By the way, Brookfield stock up about 50% since Carney was elected. Well, the Canadian economy is officially in recession after 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth since Carney was elected. $63 billion in investment leaving Canada since Carney was elected. Well, at the same time, Carney's Brookfield Asset Management is announcing an $80 billion deal to make the United States of America the leading clean energy provider. It's sick. $9 billion spent on immigrants in the past 5 years alone, and that's most certainly an understatement. 1,400 hotel rooms paid with our tax dollars. How do we live in a democratic society when billions of Canadian taxpayer dollars are being paid to immigrants who we are inviting into the country and are not economically contributing? It's undoubted. You look at the statistics, an outsized portion of immigrants are on social assistance. And you know why the Liberals do it? Because they vote overwhelmingly Liberal. Over 85% of immigrants entering this country vote for the Liberal Party of Canada. They are not doing it for the betterment of this country. They are not doing it for the betterment of the Canadian people. They are doing it for their own electoral interests. They view Canadian land as some sick post-national state where you're not allowed to have national pride. Mark Carney is a globalist WF Davos stooge. Just look at that dead-eyed bug. You think this guy gives 2 damns about the Canadian people? He spent his entire adult life outside of the country in America. Over 90% of his investments in America. He gives 2 shits about the average Canadian. He's worried about his own investment portfolio, which is up massively since he was elected prime minister. And he relies on a propagandistic mainstream media. Again, huge story. Billions of dollars we've been spending to house immigrants in a hotel room, cutting down tourism in the Niagara area, while secretly using our tax dollars, Canadians. When you're using a food bank, when you can't afford your rent, do you really want your taxpayer dollars going towards immigrants? They secretly pay for immigrant hotel rooms in Canada while the Canadian people cannot feed themselves in this country. It's disgusting, and it's no less than traitorous. That's what this government is. This government is traitorous. There has never been as overwhelming a consensus in Canada that we do not want this level of immigration. 7 in 10 Canadians say put a moratorium, put a stop to immigration. CBC, CTV, Global News, they refuse to cover the stories because they're propaganda outlets. CBC receives $1.5 billion with a B dollars a year from the government of Canada to spew their propaganda. Their website is an absolute pathetic joke. They'll never tell the story of 1,400 hotel rooms using it paid for migrants, $9 billion going to migrants. But what they do is they ignore the population. Canadians overwhelmingly do not want this mass immigration. It's so clear in the polling. So what does the government of Canada do? Rather than saying we live in a democracy, we respect the will of the Canadian people, they continue to, Mark Carney wants to allow another 1.5 million people into the country in 2025. So what do they say? They don't say, oh, we'll have an open debate about this. Oh, we'll have a discussion. They try to shut it down, and they pass laws like Bill C8, Bill C9. I got axed from TikTok with 30,000 followers because the cowardly Canadian government, it's good in a way, because you know you're hitting a pain point when they're canceling you. They're saying, you're not allowed to talk about this. You're racist. It's 2025. Nobody cares about you going, you're racist if you're against immigration. I'm not racist against anybody, bro. I'm happy for all longtime Canadians, regardless of your skin color, to be here. But you as the government, your primary responsibility is to the Canadian people. You're not Prime Minister of the world, you're Prime Minister of the Canadian people. But they refuse, the media refuses to cover immigration. So we are going to need to force them, not give them a choice, but to cover immigration, which is why I've started the Fight for Canada Party, submitting all the paperwork. Thank you to everybody who registered. I have over 260 signatures so far. Fantastic. And you need 250 to register. Really appreciate everybody, guys. Still register if you haven't done so, because probably a few of the signatures won't go through for whatever reason. But the Fight for Canada Party is actually going to get out and call these traitors out for what they are, which is treasonous cowards who are selling the Canadian people out at every corner to fill their pockets up, and then the propagandistic media refuses to tell the story of what's going on. Imagine that. A year and a half of your taxpayer dollars paying for 1,400 hotels rooms. How does that help the Canadian people? Please explain that to me, Mark Carney, you sick bastard, you WF Davos dead-eyed stooge. These people are total creeps, and they need to be called out. Enough of these milquetoast criticisms. These people need to be called out for the cretins, the traitorous cretins that they are, which is exactly what they are, trying to destroy our beautiful country. Going to shout it from the rooftops, and they're not going to stop me. Please like, share, subscribe, donate, grab some gear. Really appreciate everyone who supports, and stay tuned for more updates on the Fight for Canada Party coming soon. Add more legitimacy to our critique. I know a hell of a lot of Canadians feel the exact same way I feel. Time for patriotic Canadians to stand up and say enough.